It's actually kind of cool.
Ready?
Okay. Right, just give it a second. Okay, we're rolling.
All right, this is an interview at the Division Military Naval Affairs Headquarters, Latham, New York, 14th of March, 2007, approximately 1 p.m. Interviewers are Mike Russert and Wayne Clark. Could you give me your full name, date of birth, and place of birth, please?
My full name is Carleen Calypso. My date of birth is 3/28/1970, and I was born in Nyack, New York.
Okay, what was your educational background prior to entering service?
College. I had attended college, and have a liberal arts degree.
Okay. What college, if you don't mind?
I started out in Oswego, it was a little cold, so I graduated from Excelsior.
Oh, okay. All right. Why did you decide to join the Army National Guard?
It's a transition. I originally joined the Army at 19 to pay for college, and I was in a field hospital. I was in the 74th Field Hospital in Orangeburg, New York, when they shut down services. I then became an ambulance, a 242 ambulance. That was in the National Guard, and I subsequently left that and became 88 Mike with the 1569.
So what do you mean by that?
Left that MOS.
Oh, okay. So you started out in the field in medical area?
Yes, I was a medic,
Mm-hmm.
military medic.
Where did you go for your medical training?
San Antonio, Houston, Texas, San Antonio, Texas.
Okay. And how long was that school?
At the time, I think the school was 3.5 months.
Okay. And whereabouts did you take your basic training?
I did basic at Fort McClellan, Alabama, home of the MPs and the Chemical Corps.
Okay.
How did you like it down there?
It was the first time I had been that far south, and I went during December. It was warmer there than in Fort Dix.
Okay.
At some point, you went to officer candidate school.
After 10 years of military service and no upward mobility, I was in a unit that, as a tractor trailer driver, it's difficult to attain E5 and E6 slots.
Uh-huh.
So my commander at the time decided that I had characteristics of a leader and submitted my package to go to OCS.
Oh.
And I graduated class of 2000.
And you went to ESMA?
Yes, I did OCS in Camp Smith
Okay.
in lieu of drill for, I think it's 16 months.
Mm-hmm. How was that training in comparison with your other military training? Was it more difficult, demanding?
It was physically demanding because by that time I was 30.
Uh-huh.
And you usually meet young lieutenants coming out of ROTC or West Point that are 22. And I had a family, so it was difficult, but not impossible, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
I had some pretty good TAP officers who I still see to this day.
When did you receive your bars?
I was class of 2000. Actually,
Oh, okay.
I had a problem with my security clearance, which is ironic because I'm now a military intelligence officer, but I had to wait to get my gold bars till, I think it was March of 2001, when my security clearance finally came through.
Okay. What was your first assignment as a lieutenant?
I worked with the 27th RAOC as the assistant to the assistant S3. And the RAOC is a area operations center in the field of war. The RAOC would be the rear.
Okay. What did you do basically?
Basically, we assembled training schedules. We did attend a warfighter exercise in Grafenfurt, Germany, where you got a feel for what an intelligence officer would be doing in a rear operations center. Should we be doing?
Now, how did you go over there? Did you fly commercially or?
Yes, we flew commercial. I think it was Delta. It was definitely a commercial flight.
Okay.
How long were you in Germany?
2 weeks.
What, did you ever get to tour around during
Yes,
that time?
I actually got a chance to go to Czechoslovakia and spend a day at Prague. And got an opportunity to experience different cultures, eat different foods, and speak to the American soldiers that were stationed in Germany.
Okay. Where did you go after your Germany assignment?
After the 27th Rayon, I was with the 642 MI Battalion, and subsequently I went to OBC, which is in Fort Huachuca, Arizona,
Mm-hmm.
and that was 5.5 months of training.
What were some of the things you learned to do there?
Become, as an MI officer, I have to be able to plan, supervise, as well as analyze intelligence, both coming in and produce and disseminate products that we, based on the intel, inform the officers in charge. That is a way of informing them of the enemy's capabilities, as well as how to employ our assets to win a battle.
When did you, I know in your form you said that a unit or a group of people that impressed you the most was a Rhode Island unit or detachment?
Yes. We had, as a 642 MI, one of our assets was a long-range surveillance, the LRSD, and I met a bunch of individuals, 53 of them to be exact. Prior to us going to war, we had previously trained in warfire exercises in Fort Leavenworth. They have excellent soldiers. These soldiers are the 18th Airborne Ranger qualified soldiers that were attached to us as assets. And as long-range surveillance, they would be employed deep into enemy territory and provide intelligence for us. What impressed me about them was their determination to get the job done, their discipline in what they do. These soldiers were subject matter experts in most of the weapons that the military has. They kept themselves up both mentally and physically. And as an MI officer, I don't often get a chance to deal with infantry soldiers, and that's where they were. They were, 100% 11 Bravo. The majority of them being not only infantry qualified, but they were Ranger qualified, and several of them were Special Forces. And their perseverance in the face of battle was unbelievable. They had to overcome insurmountable odds, as in where they were placed to in duty, the different forward operating bases that they occupied or they stayed in, and the different maneuvers that they had to complete.
Okay. Now you ended up going into Iraq.
Yes,
Could you talk about your deployment?
while in Kuwait, waiting to convoy up to Iraq.
Now, how did you get to Kuwait?
We flew commercial airlines
Okay.
to Kuwait. And
Was this from Germany or from?
Oh no,
stateside?
back in the United States.
Oh, okay, you went out to
Yes, I went out.
Arizona, then you.
Came back and I went out to Arizona. It's the summer of '03. Came back December of '03 and was activated May of '04.
Oh, you were with the 42nd Division?
Yes,
Okay.
still am.
Okay.
Okay. So you went to Kuwait first.
Yes, we flew out to Kuwait, and during that time period is between a 15 and 21 day time period where we acclimate to the weather, one, and do specialized training and receive rules of engagement for Iraq. At that time, my battalion commander was alerted that they needed an MI officer to backfill individual at the Rear Operations Center. So I reported there. They were at Kuwait City, the port at Kuwait City, and I subsequently linked up with them in Spiker, which was in Tikrit, Iraq. It's a forward operating base in Tikrit, Iraq.
Okay. What did you think of, or what were your impressions when you got into the Middle East, when you reached Kuwait and then Iraq? What were your impressions of the area?
It's not what you read in the books. As an intelligence officer, one of the ways that I prepared for going into the theater of war was learning as much as I can about the people, the population, the area as a whole, weather, wood line, and it's definitely different than what you learn in the books. It's an experience, just in the different noises, sounds that you hear. And knowing that you are in a hostile territory. Now, Kuwait wasn't considered hostile, but just knowing that eventually you would be entering hostile territory. It was different.
Was your base under fire at all ever? Or?
No, not in Kuwait.
Not, I mean, when you got into Tikrit?
Yes. Well, Spiker is a supply. It was a main supply port, so we had troops coming in and out to attain supplies, and with that came insurgents knowing that there was friendly forces receiving supplies. Mm-hmm. So we received indirect fire several times, sometimes depending on the time of year. Obviously for Ramadan and some of their more religious holidays, we received more fire.
Mm-hmm. Now, what were your living conditions like? Where did you live?
I lived in a CHU, which is a contained housing unit. It's a trailer cut in half, and then myself and another female officer lived in. Space was limited.
What about the enlisted? Where did they live?
The enlisted as well lived in those CHUs. They just had more people in the CHUs.
Okay.
And then there were also hard body units, buildings that the enlisted occupied.
Okay.
And then towards the end of our tour, we lived in GP Lodges, tents, in order to turn over our units to the 101.
Do you know the origin of the name Spiker?
Yes, as a matter of fact, that was one of the things I was tasked to do. Evidently, the name Spiker came from a fighter pilot that was shot down in that area. Okay. They subsequently named a file for him, Navy pilot.
Okay. Now, did you ever encounter any spiders, scorpions, snakes, or anything like that?
Yes, I was acquainted with the camelback spider while there. Very strange looking spider, not the, here we're used to the very long legs and being in Arizona, although I never saw it while I attended school there. My neighbors complained of the tarantula. I was not privy to the tarantula, but I did get a chance to see the camelback spider. Mm-hmm. It's scary in nature, just its appearance is weird to you. And it looked like it had a lot more appendages than you would think.
How did you adjust to the sand and the
very difficult, very hard to adjust to the weather.
Mhm.
I was lucky, I worked at night, so the majority of my time was spent indoors in the air conditioning when it worked. However, the heat, unbearable. And I was one of the few that did not have to sit in a Humvee, so I was able to survive. It's unbelievable what the average soldier who's out there on patrol has to put up with the heat, because at times the temperature did get to 130 degrees, easy.
Now, did you have to almost continually consume water?
Yes, we were consuming at least 2 to 3 liters of water a day just to stay hydrated. And at some points it was the Crystal Light and just water, because it's the, you sweat, perspiration profusely, constantly changing underclothes, undergarments with the heat.
How about the sand?
The sand, I was lucky enough to be in 2 sandstorms. Unbelievable. These things, I don't know if you've seen the movie, I can't, Return of the Mummies with the sand, or
There's that one about the horse Hidalgo?
Yes.
Or that was?
Hidalgo. And the sand, the way that they portrayed the sand was exactly that. It came fast and furious. It was able to penetrate the window sills that were sealed shut, and it wasn't that coarse sand that you see at the beach. It was a fine soot sand that stuck to everything. We had sand everywhere, all sorts of unmentionable places at times. It's unbelievable.
How about the food?
The food was different in that we had obviously caterers, KBR, catering to our food. And while I have to say, they did try to provide us with variation for menu. But at the end of the day, whether it's 28, 21, or 14, the food gets old really quick. Because, I mean, in all fairness, they're trying to feed thousands of soldiers in a short amount of time. So we got to give them credit for attempting to do that. And they did try to provide us with fresh fruits and vegetables, which was really important. But the foods at times were overcooked and just not mom's home cooking.
What about entertainment?
We did have several venues of entertainment. We, at the time that I was there, Jessica Simpson and her husband came. We had several celebrities as well as politicians come for a visit. We had, I think it was the Playboy Bunnies and the Poodle Girls, as well as wrestling come to provide entertainment for us. And they provided movies and DVDs for us to entertain ourselves.
Was there like a little theater where you could watch movies, or you
Yes.
just watched them individually?
Both.
Okay.
They had an MWR, several MWRs within the FOB for soldiers to go in and rent movies or watch movies. Then, for the majority of us, we had laptops or portable DVD players. We were able to listen to music and play movies on our own.
How was the PX system? Was that adequate, or?
Like everything else, it's a work in progress. When I first got there, we had a small PX, and it's eventually built a bigger one. But again, it's hard to accommodate the amount of soldiers that are actually on a FOB with the PX capabilities. It's
How many soldiers would you say were on the base?
I would say at any given time there was at least 3,500 to 5,000 soldiers, because we constantly had individuals coming in to pick up supplies. Spiker was also a point of debarkation, so we had soldiers coming in, flying in, so they could get flights out of country or flights to different parts of the country. So we had a constant influx of soldiers.
Now, being in an intelligence unit, how did you gather intelligence?
we had a zipper net access. I was lucky in the sense that I went to OBC with 22 West Pointers who were active duty, who had already been in theater, and some of them were currently in theater at my time. So I was able to, through ZipperNet, get abundance of information. Plus, the long-range surveillance detachment that I spoke about, were able to provide me with a lot of real-world human intelligence.
Mhm. What about American civilians over there? Did you encounter many of them?
Yes, they did have a lot of American contractors, and they did provide somewhat intelligence as to what they saw when they were within the population and what procedures that they were implementing when they're convoys.
Now, you had a family, your own family?
Yes, I'm a widow. I have a small child, a 10-year-old.
Now, so he was, or she, I don't know.
She
was about 8 or so when you went over?
Yes.
So how did she react to that?
It was hard for her.
And you?
It was difficult for her, for me, for the both of us. Prior to my being deployed, it was the first time we had been separated for such a long time. Like I said, I'm a widow. My husband passed away when she was 3. So we developed a close bond with one another. I normally take her to my ATs and have her stay in another hotel or somewhere nearby, and I took her down with me to OBC. So the separation, 18 months deployment, was difficult on the both of us. Emotionally, it was very tough.
Now, did you get to come home on leave at all, like halfway through your tour?
Yes, I did come home in June of 2005 for 2 weeks.
Was it really difficult to go back again?
Definitely difficult. Going into Iraq, you didn't know what to expect. And while you were sad that you were leaving home, it was the anticipation of actually going somewhere and making a difference. Going home, seeing my family, and then having to get back on the plane was one of the toughest things I had to do, because I now knew what I was going back to, and it was hard.
Now, when you went back, did you go back with another group of soldiers, or you just got on a commercial flight and headed back?
Well, we went back to another group. What they do is you fly into Atlanta, and from Atlanta, we all boarded a plane and flew into Kuwait. In general, it was the same individuals that you flew out with that you were flying back with, because we all had the 2 weeks.
Okay.
How did you feel about the mission in Iraq?
As in what?
I don't know, your unit, overall mission of your unit. Do you think you were successful in your mission? And
I think we were more successful than the first ID or than the 101, in the sense that the 42nd ID is National Guardsmen, and we were comparably older than the unit that we were replacing, or the unit that replaced them. And I sense that the people from studies, country studies, have more respect for the older generation than the younger.
did you yourself have much contact with the local people?
No, I did not. The closest I got was third country nationals and the Iraqis that they employed to clean our fob, but I was not lucky enough to be outside the fob for long.
Now, most of your, I shouldn't say most of them, but were some of your military intelligence staff able to speak the language? Is that how they were able to gather some of the intelligence? Or did most of the Iraqis that they encountered speak English?
Yes and no. We were encouraged to speak or learn to speak the language prior to our deploying. We took classes and did the intermediate learning.
Mm-hmm.
The majority of the Iraqis that we did come in contact with did speak English or learned enough English to speak to us.
Mm-hmm.
And our intelligence was being driven by computer databases of individuals inputting information. As we received the blue flash report from the field, they would include it in the intelligence, super data, and I would see what in data occurred within minutes.
Okay, now you used the term SIDPER a couple times. What does that stand for?
It's the secret it's the secret internet access that we use.
Okay.
We can't talk about it, right? You said one of the experiences that left the greatest impression was briefing two generals.
Yes.
Why?
Well,
Tell about it and why.
as a lieutenant, you dream of the day where a general would ask for your opinion. And I had the fortune of briefing the ADC, and this was the Assistant Division Commander for Support. He was General Sullivan. It was he was the one that I briefed every morning. And we had a guest visitor, another one-star general. And that morning, as I was briefing the staff, what it is, you come up to a podium and the staff, the G4, G1, G3, the general, chief of staff, are standing in front of you. And as a lieutenant, it's your dream because that's what you train for. You want to be able to tell the general, this is what occurred, exsurgent activity, and this is what I think. And what had transpired was, because I was getting intel sometimes from the field, from the soldiers themselves, sometimes I get privy to information that the actual G2 over in another file did not have yet. And at one point of a briefing, the general says to me, well, Lieutenant, that's not what the G2 is saying. And I said, well, sir, this is the world according to Lieutenant Calypso. And I said, how often is a lieutenant going to be able to say that to a general? It's something I'm going to remember because I said that to two one-star generals. Like, whoa.
How did they react to that?
They smiled because they were like, I know they were probably saying, who's this lieutenant? But then about 24 hours later, the actual G2 was putting out the same information. And I just looked out because I knew the guys who had sent the information.
Okay.
When you returned home to the States, what was your assignment? I know you're still with the 42nd.
I'm currently the Assistant S2 for Combat Aviation.
Now what does that mean?
Basically the same thing, but I'm doing it for individuals who pilot aircrafts as well. I'm providing the same information. It's just that I'm providing in detail information of how the weather or enemy capability could affect their aircrafts. Because I don't know if you've been watching the war, the news, we've had several helicopters shot down, so that's important.
So you're now discussing how you would change tactics for the helicopters and
Yes.
what this means. One of the things you mentioned when you went into Kuwait, I meant to ask this question earlier, you talked about learning the rules of engagement.
Yes.
How do you think how did they help you, and maybe how did they hinder, do you think, doing the mission?
Like I said, I was not privy enough to be outside in the population. So, to me, the rules in engagement are a hindrance to the American soldier because you actually have to wait to be fired upon. The average individual, to safeguard themselves, is now waiting for that threat. The imminent danger would be presented from you posing a threat to me.
Now, did you carry a weapon with you on base?
At all times, yes.
And did you wear the body armor and
Yes.
helmet all the time?
Yes.
What did you carry as a weapon?
I carried an M16.
Okay.
Okay, so looking back, you went into the service in 1989, you're still in. How do you think things have changed within the Guard, and how do you think you've changed?
Things have changed within the military because women are being tasked to different fields that previously were close to us. I read that they're trying to give women combat badges. How it stayed the same, I don't know. I don't think I've been in long enough to see how it stayed the same, or a big difference. But women are definitely being promoted more into leadership positions, and I'm seeing more female leaders, which is important.
How do you feel how long do you think you'll stay in? And
I'll probably stay until my daughter is done with college, probably another 10 years. Hopefully before I'm 60.
do you, I think you're looking at graduate schools?
Yes.
So you're going to use education also, educational opportunities offered?
Yes, I'm looking into how I can apply my BA benefits into attaining a grad degree.
Okay. Do you have anything else that you want to add? Or?
No, I just think this was so cool.
Okay, well, thank you very much for the interview.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.